And maybe I can start by say some general announcements, some general information to give you. Um, First of all, I really want to thank you all. We're not, I'm sure there's going to be much more people. Normally we're 10, 12, 15. So in a couple of minutes, I will announce everything. But I'm very grateful for your presence. You have always been there. Ryzen Moni has just got in. Thank you from Oxford University. And I am very pleased to welcome you all to this fourth webinar that is helping us prepare the international conference that will be held in Paris on the 19th and 20th of September. And I'm especially mentioning it for some people that are with us for the first time today. I must say that my friend Cam was not able to be with us today. He is somebody very, very important in the United Kingdom. He has been president of the Worldwide Association, Cultural Psychiatry Association, and also an editor of the journal British Psychiatry. But he has had a problem to be with us today, and very, very. I know he's somebody who takes care of things like this. He asked me to present to you his colleague who works with him and whose name is Razin. I don't know. Excuse me, Mrs. Mooney. I know you're there, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing right your name. Rising, Rising.
It's close. It's Rasheen.
Excuse me, Rising.
Rasheen, yeah, Rasheen Mooney.
Well, I am very pleased to have the four people have been announced for the webinar. As always, very, very sharp on time. And I am announcing, so Ryzen Mooney is going to be, you're a researcher, postdoctoral researcher at the Division of Psychiatry in Oxford University, United Kingdom. And you have been working with Cam Bowie, Professor Bowie, in some very interesting matters, including art. I'm not going to develop this much more. If you want to add something to present yourself, please do this. I am very happy to see the friends, colleagues from Japan. Itsu, you have been here almost every time. Jean Chambry, bienvenue. And there's other people from Ukraine is there also, and I'm sure people from Argentina and Mexico will show up easy. I have to see if they're not sending me some, if they don't have any problem. No, there are no problems. They're going to be here. Julia is there. Thank you very much, Julia. I will let you all present a little bit more. And remember, please, this is a very important thing to tell you. First of all, to thank you all for the high level of your work and for the effort of pedagogy that have been shown. Also, by speaking English clearly, Mrs. Mooney won't have this problem. But as much as some other people in the world don't speak English as a mother language, I'm asking you to try to make it as shortly as calm and slow in order to be able to understand what everything says. 15 minutes, please, for your development. And this is important to tell you now because for the Congress, it's going to be very, very tight. And it's not a Congress, or the international conference is going to be very tight. So I'm really asking you to start right now with this, with being strict with yourself by talking in order to be able to conclude. So we're going to start today with Mrs. Moni from Oxford University. You're going to say what you are, and then we're going to have Mrs. Sibel Dequeiros, who is going. I'm going to announce the other ones afterwards. I'm going to start with Mrs. Moni. Please, have the word. Tell us who you are and your work itself.
Thank you ever so much, Alberto. And yeah, I'm here on behalf of Professor Kambui. I think I've got my colleague Simran Sansoy on the call as well.
Excuse me. I have to ask you, are you all okay if we record this meeting? Thank you very much. It started being recorded. Thank you.
Thanks, Alberto. So yes, as Alberto kindly said, I am a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Psychiatry at Oxford University. I have my colleague Simran, who is the project manager on another project working with us in the group, who is also going to present alongside me. Our presentation really focuses on 3 different projects that all use different forms of creativity in mental health research. Could I have the next slide, please, Simran? So we really wanted to think about kind of breaking down barriers in research. And we know that a lot of the evidence base that we draw from to inform kind of both policy and practice decisions is largely informed by kind of white middle class people that are readily available to take part in research. And often the people who are most impacted or suffer the most inequalities from some of the things that we look at with regards to mental health aren't necessarily included in some of the research and the evidence base that we consider to be knowledge. So we were really keen in a lot of our research to consider different kind of systemic and health inequalities, particularly around different marginalised groups such as ethnicity, neurodivergence, different sexualities, to ensure that the voices of these types of people and their experiences are also represented in research. And one of the ways that we've thought about doing this is using different creative methodologies, such as photo voice or ethnography or making films with people, to allow people to share their experiences with us as researchers and for us to consider that as data in the same way that we consider statistics and numbers as data. And we find that creative methods really offer a way to kind of personalize and allow people to take part in research differently. And that this can really inform the co-design of how we do work, how we design the systems and the policies and the practices that we enforce in the healthcare systems in the UK. We're going to very briefly talk about 3 different projects that we're running in our group at the moment. Each of these projects are at different stages. The first one, Origin, is in its infancy. It's funded by the NIHR, which is kind of one of the large statutory organisations in the UK that fund health research. And the project is essentially looking to engage young people who are at risk of anxiety or depression and essentially feel underrepresented. So it's thinking about that real feeling of not being heard and not being listened to as a mechanism for anxiety and depression, and allowing them to engage with an online arts and culture museum. So if you go to the next slides, please, Simran, and to use this as an intervention. So this is kind of broadly what the website looks like. And people can engage in this at their own pace. There was some pilot work that was done during COVID, and we found that this intervention was really beneficial for people that felt marginalised from different ethnic minority communities. And then we sought further funding to kind of co-design an improved version of this that includes a larger number of different stories. And a lot of the mechanisms behind this were around human connection and people being able to kind of really understand and feel heard and listen to other people's stories. So this entire piece of research has been co-designed alongside people who are aged 16 to 24. And we have a number of peer researchers working with us alongside some industry partners to really consider the impact of arts and culture on mental health and how we can harness those benefits. Simran, over to you, I think.
Thanks, Roisin. So we have the Attune project. So this is a Medical Research Council funded project, and it's looking at poor adolescent mental health, specifically adverse childhood experiences with young people aged 10 to 24, so a wider age range than Origin, and using creative methodologies to understand the mechanisms behind it. So we started in September 2021 and it will finish next year in August. So we're at the 2-year mark at the moment, so it's a bit further along. And where's it gone? There we go. So these are some of the creative pieces that our participants made in Work Package 1 and Work Package 3. So there are 6 work packages in Attune. And using different creative methodologies such as photographs, dance, animation, filmmaking, we were able to explore how the young people and their lived experiences and their individual processes that each and everyone experiences, rather than using questionnaires and surveys which kind of define each person into a specific box that may not fit them depending on what they've experienced. And then 2 of our main outputs is a public health resource, which we are co-designing with young people, and a serious game, which there are some pictures of on the right-hand side. Again, raising awareness of ACEs, and just to showcase how important art can be in understanding young people and enabling professionals to understand young people at a deeper level and going just a bit further than that superficial level that we seem to be working at the moment. Over to Roisin.
Thanks, Simran. So I'm going to talk a bit about the third study called COPACT. This study has actually concluded and our outputs are currently being reviewed by the funder before we apply to publish them in journals and other different forms of sharing knowledge and other outputs. In the UK, we have a legal system and a law called the Mental Health Act, which was kind of came about in 1983. Whilst there have been a few amendments, as you can see by this brief timeline, it's not really changed much since then, unfortunately. And we know from an independent review that happened in the UK in 2018 that people from ethnic minority backgrounds are disproportionately impacted by this law and detained under the Mental Health Act and forcibly treated for their mental health at much higher rates than white people. So Cam and I were really interested in learning more about this. It's a historic problem in the UK, and there's been little movement really around this despite lots of different initiatives and awareness of the problem. So alongside Cam, I co-led an application and a project that started in 2021 called COPACT. If you could go to the next slide, please, Simran. And essentially the idea in this project was to allow people who had experience of being detained under the Mental Health Act and recognising that this is a quite traumatic experience to share their experiences with us using photography. So we gave service users cameras, disposable cameras. So this was one of our participants, Bobby, and we invited them to go and take photographs. We developed the photographs. We worked with them to develop captions. And then we analysed all of that data. That information then fed into something called a co-design. So from that data, we established touch points. So there are points in someone's journey where we feel like we can make a difference, where a decision has to be made. And we worked with 8 different NHS trusts across the UK to think about how we can change the outcomes and how we can improve the experiences for these people. What changes can we make to the local systems? So we've shared a lot of this data quite widely in the UK. If you can go to the next slide, please, Simran. So this slide very broadly shows the overall programme and the levels of people that we had involved. So just to kind of highlight from that central blue box at the top, work package 1, we recruited 60 people who'd been detained under the Mental Health Act, and actually around 73% of those were from an ethnic minority background. And in the UK, we have a lot of challenges in engaging people from ethnic minority backgrounds in research, and we really found that using creativity and using the arts really facilitated people who wouldn't usually have a voice and wouldn't usually contribute to research to be involved in this project. And from those people, they shared over 500 images and over 30 hours of audio transcription, which was absolutely a phenomenal amount of data for us to get entangled with. We did have a work package to understand what it was like for people to take part in research. We also had a health economics work package, and that was really instrumental in helping kind of decision makers and policy makers to understand the impact of some of the experiences that people were having. And alongside the images and the data that we've received, I think really brings it to life. A lot of this work has been very participatory. So you can see at the bottom here, this little list of PPI and programme management. We really try to embed people with lived experience at every different level of the research. If you go to the next slide, please, Simran. So this just shows an example of some of the types of photos that people shared with us. I think it can be really difficult to conceptualise photo voice if you haven't really become entangled with it. All of these photographs are from the same person, and they kind of allow her to share with us the impact of her diagnosis, some of the challenging interactions she had with healthcare professionals, how isolated she felt being on a mental health unit, and the importance of some of her relationships. If you go to the next slide, please, Simran. And these are some of the overall kind of national recommendations that we made. In this project, we really wanted to recognise that across the UK, there are many different kind of smaller communities, and actually what's needed somewhere in the south in London might look very different to what's needed somewhere like Birmingham or Manchester or further north in the country. So we wanted to work in local systems and develop local policies and then use that to inform more national policies. So the information that I have on this slide relates to some of the national policies that we've thought about. In terms of prevention, there was a lot of photographs that really shared the amount of stigma that people experience from having a mental health diagnosis and from being detained under the Mental Health Act. The co-design element was around designing new standards of inpatient care. So some of the photographs that were shared with us really demonstrated how dehumanizing some of the experiences were and the poor quality of the environment. So we had a lot of images of kind of gates, of locked doors, even of the blue skies and the impact of being able to be outside and how that had been taken away from them when they were detained. There was a recommendation around involving friends and family. So there were lots of photographs of people's kind of feet or people's hands to just demonstrate how integral those relationships were to someone getting better. There was a recommendation around providing better access to talking therapy. People wanted it to be recognised that although they were detained under the Mental Health Act to receive treatment, actually it was a very traumatic experience. I don't know if that's my time. Sorry, I think we've only got one more slide left. And actually, you can kind of see how all of these policy recommendations really do track back all the way through to quite creative arts and individual experience data. Could we have the next slide, please, Simran? So I think these were just some key messages that Simran was going to share for us.
So our key messages, just that arts methods enable marginalised groups to become participants, enabling positive experiences and creativity, which is rewarding rather than deficit-focused research and questionnaires. To be inclusive, it's necessary to be flexible and thinking about what adjustments are needed for people to take part. And it's important to emphasise the benefits and the impacts that we can gain from local institutional support. Experimental data can be seen as subjective and dismissed. So going forward, we need better data, evaluation and interdisciplinary dialogue so we can make a bigger change together. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I must confess that I didn't realize that Simran Sansoy is going to be working with us today. So I am sorry not presenting you, but thank you both. First of all, by respecting your pedagogical kind of the way you so easy to explain in very few words so many things of this program. Very interested because it touches a lot of items. I am not going to be able to discuss more now, but we'll have a little bit more time to discuss afterwards. After our 4 presentations of the day, I am going to ask Mrs. Raymond and Mrs. Dicken, are you there? To please, yes, you are. Dickero, Madame Raymond. You're both of you part of a very important family organization, patients' family organization. It's called UNAFAM, and you're going to show us a very original work on our piece that was written and scheduled and staged by yourself. Please present yourself. You have 15 minutes, and hope we will all be as happy as I was.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Velasco, for allowing us to make this presentation. So I will briefly introduce myself and then pass and let Sibylle introduce herself as well. So my name is Emmanuelle Raymond. I'm a family caregiver, and I'm also the delegate for Paris of the association UNAFAM, which is an acronym, UNAFAM, that stands for National Associations of Family and Friends of People with Mental Illness. This organization was set up in France 60 years ago by families, and now UNAFAM has over 100 delegations throughout the country and more than 50,000 members. Why I am introducing this play, because it's a play we're going to talk to you about, that will be staged in October in Paris for the World Mental Health Day. The play, which is called Behind the Fog, shows through an artistic mediation what is happening behind the doors when a family is confronted with the serious mental illness of a loved one. It's not only to provide support to families to help them help their loved one, but it's also just to provide support by families because they are hugely impacted by the serious mental illness within the family. What happens is pain, despair, and sometimes dismantling of the whole family, often due to a lack of information, the misunderstanding of the disease, or an appropriate behavior from all sides. Family associations like UNAFAM help families feel less isolated and desperate by providing information, offering help, and a peer-to-peer training. This is what Sibylle, who's just sitting next to me, and her husband Rémi, the authors of the play, have experienced. They are just like me, family caregivers and UNAFAM members. Their son and stepson Ulysse is a painter and a musician suffering from bipolar disorders and addiction. You see, can you put next slide, please, Sibylle? You see one of his paintings on this slide, and more are about to come along the presentation. I met Sibylle while I was facilitating a European training program called Prospect, delivered on a peer-to-peer basis that aims to help families cope in the long run with the serious mental illness of a loved one. I would never have thought this session would produce such a beautiful artistic project, and I'm thankful to Sibylle and her family for doing so. Now it's high time to hand over the presentation to Sibyl and to thank you all for your attention. Sibyl, your turn.
Thank you.
So, hello everyone. I'm very happy to speak about this play we co-wrote with my husband. Let me tell you how it all started. I got up one morning and almost went to work as usual. The thing is, I had a bad night with a very strange nightmare. I just got off work. My aunt had come to pick me up for the weekend, and I found myself in a car without a driver, driving straight into a wall. It was at that moment that I asked myself whether I was losing control of my life. Already 10 years up and downs, I had to talk about it with my husband. I started writing this scene in the metro, and the rest followed quickly. My husband and daughter read the text and told me to continue. Then my stepdaughter, with a stage director and an actress, helped me to turn the story into a play she decided to stage. That's how the main characters, Morrigan the mother and Gabriel the son, with mental health issue, came into life. I felt it was important for me to also... I felt it was important to me to also talk about it to all my family, my husband, my daughters, as well friends, association, colleagues, and the impact on this illness on their lives. My daughter advised me to go to UNIFEM, and it was thanks to her, I will never thank her enough, that I was able to train in my self-help groups and became a volunteer at UNIFEM and La Maison Perchée, another association based on peer support for young adults with mental illness. Through our story, we wish to deliver a message of hope to families of loved ones living with a mental illness. It's the struggle of a mother, a wife, an employee, an ordinary woman who never dreamed of this extraordinary life, because faced with her some difficulties, she finds herself and her family thrown into the world of psychiatric and addiction. This play is aimed at anyone interested in mental health issues, combined with addiction issues among people living with these disorders, family members, organizations, and healthcare professionals. It is also aimed at anyone concerned about the place of women in the family and their mental burden. The play is due to be performed, like Emmanuel says, during the Mental Health Week and World Mental Health Day in October 2024. The play will be filmed and then shared free of charge with all UNIFEM delegations throughout France to serve as a basis for sharing between family members, healthcare professionals, and the public. The idea is to relate the story of this woman, this family, with the story of other women, other families. The play is constructed like a downward spiral from which only the training given by peer helpers is the way out. This spiral of fatality is punctuated by Morrigan's choreographic ritual in her bathroom. The fatigue and pain, but also the relief and support, which are at the heart of the story, are translated physically and symbolically. The idea is not to take side, but to tell the relationship between a mother, Morrigan, and her grown-up son, Gabriel. The relationship of a troubled son with the outside world, the reaction of the world troubled by the son. The theatrical and poetical dimension lies in the character of the inner voice. It's Morrigan's inner voice. As all women, Morrigan would like to be a good mother, a good wife, a good employee. The inner voice is the voice of Morrigan's absurd imagination, of her unspeakable thought. In the real life, Gabriel is a painter and a musician. People living with this disorder can obviously have talents and a message to the world. The music for the show is composed entirely by the real Gabriel, so the pivotal events in his life will be set to music as he perceives them. His painting will also play an important part in the staging. The real Gabriel has created his own style, the art grecque, from which all the paintings in these files are taken. Sometimes tortured, sometimes more peaceful, but always complex and colorful. In this story, no, je sais plus.
No, you're there. It's there.
Okay,
the road
thank
to
you.
recovery.
In this story, the road to recovery and peace in the home is a constant struggle. Working with curtains at the back and on either side of the stage will convey the changing, ephemeral, unstable nature of the situation. Finally, these curtains will symbolize the fog that prevents, hinders, and then gradually dissipates. Tu peux mettre le dernier. Ah oui. The show will last 1 hour 30 with 4 actors. We will have a simple setting with curtains and projection. As I said, music and paintings for the settings will be created by my son and his friend who has also a mental illness. To give you a taste of what the play will look like, I'm going to play the teaser we had made with the actors for promotional purpose.
Vas-y.
We made sure to have English subtitles ready for the webinar, so you will all be able to understand. Thank you.
So we're going to play it. It's a few minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Madame Ré... Ah, ça y est. On voit pas et on n'entend pas. Ça y est, je crois que c'est revenu un peu, mais...
Ça va? Vous voyez?
On voit à peine et c'est très saccadé.
Oui,
Ah.
ça plante beaucoup.
Ah, désolé.
En fait, ce qu'il faudrait, c'est envoyer le lien, si vous l'avez quelque part, dans
Oui,
le... Dans
ok.
Comme ça, les gens peuvent le regarder après.
Okay. Okay, that's what we're going to do because it's hard for you to watch. Je pense que si on prend ça. So what do you suggest to do?
Shall we take this and?
Okay, we can send it in the box and everybody can
Yes.
have a look if they're interested in. So it's
Yes.
roughly 4 minutes and with English subtitles for everybody.
Are
So
you sending
I'm
it in
going
the
to-
conversation?
Yes, I will do that. So everybody will be
Okay.
able to get it and watch it the way he wants. Is it here? See? Okay,
We got it.
Okay. You get it.
Yeah. Maybe we should cut our micros.
On doit couper les micros peut-être.
I don't know whether it's possible for you to play it, Dr. Velasco, or it's better to leave it as it is. I have no idea.
Je crois qu'ils regardent tous dans leur coin. Ah, c'est ça. Comme c'est sur YouTube, c'est plus facile pour eux. C'est qui? Elle. Il sort? Ah, c'est bon. Tu as activé le son. C'est fini. C'est pas tout à fait fini. Je rallume quand tu prends la parole. Hein. Oui. Mais c'est long, ça fait 6 minutes en fait. Il attend que les. Non, c'est bon, il a fini, je pense. Il a fini. Bah oui, il sourit. Pourquoi je n'entends pas? C'est toi.
Would you like to conclude?
Yeah, thank you. So I hope you were all able to watch it. So this is a short extract of the play. It's being in rehearsal at the moment, but the actors are the real ones who are going to perform in Paris, first in June and then in October. We'd be very happy to send out invitations for everybody who will be in Paris to come along and watch it. And we thank you all for your attention, and we are available for any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really, 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 very, very interesting, original, and we'll have much more comments after the 2 other presenters. But thank you, Sibylle and Remy, as I saw, and of course, Madame Raymond. Thank you.
Il y a un écran qui est encore partagé.
Excuse me?
Il y a un écran qui est encore partagé.
Oh, c'est le mien. Yes.
Yes. How can we stop this? Yes, you are. Thank you, Emmanuel. I know this is Emmanuel who made it. Thank you. Well, thank you. And what about continuing with the next person that's announced, which is Juan Manuel Rodriguez Penagos from Mexico. Are you there, Juan Manuel? I hope you are. You are supposed to be there right now. Can you say hello? No? Well. I am wondering if he missed the hour. Here we are. What about if we continue with Julia Martin? Julia is there. Julia is present. Argentina is present. Thank you very much for being on time. And thank you, your first 2 presentators, because you were on the schedule. Thank you very much. Julia, would you mind present yourself and then describe the dispositive and tell us why do you think it can be shared with others?
Yes, thank you, Alberto, and everyone. Julia Martin, Mental Health Director and Researcher at the Universidad Nacional de La Plata, Argentina. Today, I wanted to focus in one axe proposed that is art in research. Besides our experience in hospitals and implementing mental health policies, I just today to share with you that I belong to a research team at university where psychosis have been our focus for several years, but especially for the last 8, we've been studying the complexity of social bonds in psychosis, their intersections in 2 projects. The first one was called Psychosis and Social Bonds. The second, Psychosis Position in the Social Field. Their general objective was to make a contribution to the knowledge of the modalities of social insertion of psychotics, its scope and difficulties, with a view to potentially contribute to devices, yes? I will not stop in all the thesis developed. I will only mention a few problems and that the research adopts a psychoanalytical framework. There are lots of theory and discussion of concepts, but few works over cases with the focus on social possibilities in psychosis, not only their failures. And that's there where art comes as a part of the research. There is a theoretical problem where it's known that some authors said that social bond is not possible in psychosis. In other theories as well, in other frameworks, we take the clinic as a start. So we think we can prove there is a social bond in psychosis. We need to discuss how to think that. So we've taken or constructed cases based on testimonies, autobiographies, biographies, non-fictional or non-fictional biographies, as well as its work and as the work of these creators, which we supposed we have elements to think that were psychotic and had a special social impact. In fact, they were fathers or founders of movements in arts and politics. Yes. So art here has had a relevant role to propose a design methodology. So we combine the qualitative techniques of bibliography review and construction of cases. So here is where art becomes an orientation in the methodology of research. After a first moment of conceptual and convention use, we work on the construction of cases considered extraordinary by their creativity and social impact. Yes. For this section, so I told you we took the autobiographies and the epistolaries, journalistic news, etc., but also the work. Yes, the impact of the work. We can say it's a convention that art is made especially to be shown. Yes, so there is a direction to the others, and many of these creators or revolutionary people were psychotic. Yes, we took the cases of Louis Althusser, Artaud, Dalí, Gérard de Nerval, Fernando Garcia Curten, Adolf Hitler, a frustrated artist. Yes, James Joyce, Yasuyori Kusama, Marilyn Monroe, Edvard Munch, Václav Nijinsky, Fernando Pessoa, Alejandra Pizarnik, Yves Saint Laurent, Vincent van Gogh, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. So you see most of them from the arts field. Extraordinary characters who forged a name for themselves that left their mark on the cultural and social history of our civilization. So the range of cases covers their different geographical and historical moments, but they all have in common having revolutionized the established order, yes, in literature, poetry, painting, sculpture, dance, theater, cinema, politics, philosophy, fashion. So the artistic production is also object of study, not only what we call the story of life. Yes, many of them have been recognized, like in some case, late, as the initiators of new movements, the beginners. So we have several results, theoretical results about this. We tend to say that there are non-calculated effects of the position of psychosis in social, yes, and also that art, and that's I think the most important thing to say is, becomes a privileged object of research in itself, as it can teach us how non-typical ways of making a connection with others can be taken into account also considering the subjective coordinates of production, yes? But the object of art itself can teach us how these outsiders, yes, were able to stay in the social bond in a special way that it's, let's say, what I wanted to share with you today, yes.
Well,
I don't know the time.
you have been very, very generous by saying so many things, important and very essential things in 12, 13 minutes, which is very, very good for the whole team. And this is going to let us start on time for everyone, but not for Juan Manuel Rodriguez. I think he must have been working at till soon, because I know he works a lot.
Alberto, the hour changed here. The difference in
Latam. I see. I am. Oh, I have to check this explains. This explains yes. Everything. Well, yes. Well, I am glad we're here. I'm glad you're here. For people of many parts of the world, this is very interesting. So, Juan Manuel Rodriguez, you're going to present us a clinical case, and we are all very, very attentive to your English. You can do it slowly and on time. This is not very easy. Slowly, English spoken and on time. Would you present yourself, please? We don't hear you. No, it doesn't work.
Can you listen to me?
Okay, thank you. This is perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yes. Well, in fact, I was preparing everything because I thought we would begin in 15 minutes. It's a matter of temporality. But anyway, thank you for calling me, Alberto, telling me that you were already here, because that's why I could reach in time for our appointment. Well, finally, we did it.
Yes.
As many times think on clinical conditions, difficult clinical conditions, that we reach a point when we should, and we finally did it. That happens a lot when we are talking about psychosis, internet. I know you know destroys. Well, I'm beginning. Yes, I am a musician. You see, I play saxophone, but I also study a PhD in France, where I met Alberto, and I work a lot in Santan. And there is where I really understand that we do what we can with what we are, what we understand, rather than having everything set. So the art is always part of that. I name my work, I have 15 minutes, I name my work art technique, to establish this relation between art and a technique in the abysses of language. Okay? So okay. I'm reading. Perfect. Our first challenge is to define those territories that comprise art. On principle, I want to propose that art is omnipresent to a greater or lesser degree. In the same way that nature of our feeling encompasses any form of experience, art cannot be the object of science, and it has been said that it begins on the side of the observer. The territory of subjectivity is also the dimension where art produces the meaning prior to the words, a universe of forms perhaps more powerful than words. The clearest example that demonstrates our belonging of art is time. Since the story we make, it cannot be a part, it can only be a part of a fiction that sometimes, when we talk about mythology, religion, it becomes an epic. Art has been with us since long before we could name it. It is an inherent part of language, of experience, of ritual, of this strange thing we call reality. Art is always enigmatic. Its mystery emerges from the forms of language that inhabit. It speaks through forms as a kind of representation thing, representación cosa, very archaic. In this exposition, I would like to raise the artistic dimensions that constitute our practice, from listening, escuchar, the function of voice, and even the need of create new scenarios. Therefore, it is worth asking ourselves, what does art have that expresses itself without words? Because it does not have to go through word representation. The forms of language where art lives and ends up showing some of the forms of the beautiful, far away from the dichotomy of the charming and the ugly. Only in this field of discussion about art as a dimension of language, I would like to propose that in an analytical practice, certain instruments specific to art are needed. In principle, it seems that psychoanalysis is the art of listening to silences. Returning to the topic that brings us together, we should begin by stating its status. That is to say, if art, if art is a kind of object, we should have to start there in terms of establishing the nature of its value. Here, we should ask ourselves, in this sense, the usefulness of dreams, for example. We will also have to include the relationship between the aesthetic experience and everyday life, as Freud tells us when he talks about the ominous, when he said, when he showed us the relation between the unconscious, the resonance of what he calls the consabido, what we already know, and we don't know we know it. From there, the ominous, proposing the activity of the unknown in that sense. What is forgotten at the same time is the most powerful. It is not recognized, but known. That is what resonates, that makes art universal, that it makes us subject to the experience of the other for everybody in a very radical and primitive way. That is where art and aesthetic lives as a formal language. Our clinical practice, whatever is the theoretical framework we are based, it is a subjectivity in front of the analyst with the subjectivity of the patient. So we have to ask ourselves all these conditions of affection that are working with us. Maybe is there were many theories called the body. Our clinical work is the art of listening because it's an art. The way building a space is not based on scientific criteria, is more on our analysis, a way of creating those spaces where the silence fits. It's not a small fit, especially when words of pain can take their place. So in this field, it's also an art because listening is in no way a passive act, quite the opposite, since it put us into operation the analytical space where silences, words, and the musicality of language take their place. Sometimes forms speak more than words. It should be noted that an essential requirement in the act of listening is our ignorance. When we listen, we have to assume our ignorance. So, in what ways is creation played in the clinic? To begin with, the body. For its real presence is a place of listening. Creation is something very solitary, to which I would add two types of loneliness: the one that is intimacy and the one that is more absent and the worst degree in madness. I mean, in delusion. That is to say, it seems to show that psychosis is the deepest and most archaic way of loneliness. But even so, it is possible to have a clinic with patients as in psychosis, especially if we do not try to understand, since creation begins with such a loneliness. Uh, in any form of the structure of language, I mean psychosis, neurosis, the act of creation necessarily begins in an anonymous, where the hard and painful work of the artist and the analyst is to bring it to words like the poet, where the form and the image gives another destination, and this is where the idea of sublimation comes alive. Okay, well, are we okay in time, Alberto? Yes?
Have a couple of minutes if you want.
Okay, okay. Well, I just, I have a lot more, but I just want to say that Freud speaks especially when he relate the principles of reality in face of principles of pleasure, that the art is the best way to entangle them, to make like a possible outcome, an easiest outcome. So that is what we should try to find. Only I want to make a brief notation about mathematics that show us in Mexico the Coatlicue that have the what let me it is the golden number. We find the golden number in the Hispanic architecture as well as in Europe at the same time. This is quite an enigma because we also only find art many times. We try to find it in the most intimate way, but it is related to a representation in mathematics. I work for many times in a space in Mexico where we build the instruments and we musicalize silent movies for 4 years. And the effects we had there, which was great because we create some kind of bodies that talk, and we make an ensemble that makes a social bond and synchronization in chronological time to support the image of the other. In this case, the movie. So art is a privileged way to find this what we are looking for as an out as a way of creating the tools that permit us to establish the condition where reason and is the delirium of modernity in this way. No, art let us permit us it let us able to establish a bond in the most dark places of subjectivity. It is very important for us. That's what I come. That's what I. That's the end of the work. Thank you. Your microphone, Alberto.
Thank you very much, Juan Manuel. You are very. You have a lot of registers when you speak. Have some poetic sounds, have so deep thoughts, and your clinical practice, it's with it. Thank you very much, all of you. I must propose if we can start by questions you will want to write in the conversation lines, if ever. This is the easiest way to make everyone see them. I must say it is not at the moment not a question. It's just a comment that this is a part of our strategy to try to find out how those Oxford experiences, family friendship experiences, and Latin American experiences in both sides. There's some clinical and some institutional in Juan Manuel and Julia. And for these two last presentations, I heard twice or thrice the fact of how this can produce social bonds in society, with society, that will permit subjects, people, any person to create another way of living, another way of getting subscribed in the society. This is something I have listened before, but not as clearly as you had today. Yes, there is a question. I must say that everyone calls Juan Manuel Mane, and this is how he names himself. So in order not to lose things, I must say, yes, Mane, what will you want to say or ask or say? So here is Mane. I'm presenting you Mane.
Well, what you have said about Mane and Juan Manuel is what I want to speak about, the social bond, right? First of all, the social bond.
Yeah, excuse me. If you had this question, let me see if I can finish my comments of the other two presentations, please, and then we'll talk all together, because I was very interested in the way Mrs. Mooney and Harsimran I don't think I am saying it right, but forgive me. No, yes, it's Harsimran. Yes, I think it's okay. You were very fine when developing ideas and trying to go from art to creation to research. And one of the best things for me is that you go and seek for the places of society we don't go as much as we should, minorities. This is one of the things that I appreciated the most, what you said, but and it is not the only reason that you're going to be sharing this with us, but it was very clear for all. I hope for everyone else it was too. And just a comment for Sibyl and Emmanuel, who was a very touching presentation and intelligent one. I said to myself, a family made a creative structure, and this is an immense and huge bet. This is I don't think I have to say anything else. General things. Thank you all for being so sharp in time. 15 minutes. This is something is going to happen in a conference. But and then with Emmanuel, we're going to try to find out what are the categorical terms that came the most today, and offer you to on June the 20th. So yes, Mane, please. Thank you very much. You wanted to respond to a question.
No, sorry to
Answer
interrupt you. I just I thought you asked us to precise what is the effect of this work with social bond, right?
Yes,
First,
I've heard it in both of you, in you and in Julia, very precisely. And I think it could be a matter to share between both of you.
Julia, do you want to begin or should I begin? You, okay, I do. Well, first of all, I want to be clear on something. Social bond does not mean nothing about health. I mean, social bond, our society, our times, is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. So uh, that could be good in a way because that let us uh, be a little fool when we relate to that. Sorry, when we relate to that. So social bond in the work that I have done with art, it is very, very powerful, especially with art, because we don't have to say the things directly. We always use metaphor to say things. So in many ways, it's not offensive to nobody because it's art. It's like playing. It's one way of playing. For example, when we made an ensemble for music, a rhythmic ensemble for music, there's no words there. So there is no offense. You see? So that is very, very important in my experience, in my clinical experience with social bond. Also, we create a bond. We are a group. When we create that, sometimes we name ourselves as a game. Everything is a game. So we create a social bond, even in psychosis. That is the most important part of all this. The territory of art let us do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you like to say something, Julia?
Yeah, very short. Art allows, like the other works show, allows to be a part of something in a certain conventional way, but no, art shows singularity, allows singularity to be able to make a bond with community. So I think that's the link between the works, I think.
Thank you very much. Yes, there's somebody else who has asked a question. Julia Martin, is that what you want to say something else? No. Thank you very much. What about the others? Would you have some comments to do with our speakers today? I already said how different things are being doing. Yes, Emmanuel, please.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and for the speaker for their presentation. I am working as a director of a Center of Research in Mental Health and Social Science and Human Science in the GHU. I am a colleague of Alberto and Jean and everyone there, and I really appreciate your work. I was really interested by the way that art, in a way, art can be a way to produce some new knowledge in science, and what it said in England with Rosine and Julia, and how we can, and in different way, and that means that and for me, I am again and still stuck with the questionnaire or the interview of the focus group. This is so far our main tool to produce new knowledge. And I will be very interesting, and this is interesting to show also scientific person and the doctors that we can manage to create new knowledge that will be useful for everyone, for patients, for doctors, for science, for the world, using body, using emotion, and using creativity and bound to people. So I think there are a lot to do there. And thank you very much to be there to show that there are already some experiences and that you open in a way you are opening some way to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
I would like to go back if you. Yes, Anna, please.
Hi, sorry. I wasn't able to be present with all of me for the whole time. I'm Ana Gomez Carrillo. I work at McGill University as an assistant professor, and I work with Indigenous youth in Nunavik. I'm a psychiatrist. I was especially more present at the end with Mane, and I was really interested, and I wish I'd heard all of it. I might try and ask for the recording. I've been thinking a lot about working with silence and how we construct the other in the silence, and how much maybe some of our lenses and our psychiatric entire constructs around that interaction, that clinical interaction, feeds into the silence, and how art can maybe disrupt that process and allow for other constructions, and to actually listen to the silence through other. I'd like to use Alberto's notion of dispositive, so through other access to experience. So I think that resonated throughout also Julia Martin, multiple presentations. So I just wanted to kind of reflect on that. I didn't really have a question, but I'm excited to have more of these conversations with you.
Great, thank you. Yes, I was trying to go back and appreciate as I did when I was listening. But rising, is it the way you pronounce rising?
Yes,
rising.
perfect. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Rising Moni and Mrs. Harsiman. I hope it's this Harsiman. Harsimran. Excuse me, Hansoy. I am sorry. Because. Is this a program? Is this a study, what you were talking about? Is this already on? Is this, I think you mentioned it, but I would like to be sure if it's something that you have already shared with other countries. I was really thinking about the entities that are doing things as you did here in France. Maybe Emmanuel would agree with this. Would you mind telling us how do you... at what moment you are, and does this kind of thing could be shared with other countries?
Yeah, do you want me to say that, Simran? Yeah. So I think there are a lot of different creative methodologies that we use. I work a lot with a methodology called photo voice, and the origins of photo voice are more around kind of community engagement and feminist theory. So using photo voice as a research method and using it as a method to inform co-design is kind of the novelty that our research brings to that element of creativity. But there are various organizations such as Photo Voice Global that do use these methodologies in other countries, but not necessarily always for research purposes, often for things around kind of community engagement and social activism. With regards to our research specifically that we presented today, they are all UK-based studies. The one that I presented at the end, COPACT, that study has finished. But because the results relate to some of the legal processes that are going on in the UK and that are being reformed at the moment, a lot of our results have to be reviewed by the funder before we can publicise them. So I have put our Chimes website in the chat box here, and that links to all of the different studies. There is a lot of information in the public domain around COPACT at the moment, but we're kind of in the process of having a lot of our results kind of going through the funders to say that they're happy for us to release them more publicly with regards to kind of some more of the processes. We have published about 2 or 3 papers around our approach, and more particularly around the analysis of photo voice, just because I think that's a real challenge in some of the discussions that we've heard today. In particular, I think the screenshot, I think it was Emanuela that was saying about kind of using art as knowledge and kind of considering that as valid scientific evidence of people's experiences. I think in the scientific community, a lot of it is thinking about how we can analyse and process that data with rigour, to demonstrate that it's not just one person's subjective interpretation, and actually it's a collection of diverse experiences that we're representing in different spaces. So that paper is out there. I think it was a commentary in BMJ Open, and I can probably link to it if I can quickly find it when somebody else is talking in a moment.
Thank you. And of course, Emmanuel wants to continue.
Thank you.
Please,
and,
please.
It's just one word, and it is so we are working here a lot at the research laboratory with experiential knowledge, with knowledge about the knowledge from the users, from the family. And we are trying in each our design protocol to have people from the very beginning to all the steps of the research. And I really found it at this stage already very difficult to make it like a legitimate and serious knowledge to be produced for all the community. And even when and at this stage, people are speaking. So we are using interview or focus group, and so we have the word. But I think it is that will be another challenge, with the silence, with hearts, with movement. At the moment, there are so much developing and a movement so wild about the body and psychocorporal development, what we can learn as human through the movement of life. So thank you, Rosine, to bring this. But I think that we have to really, there is a shift of paradigm here, and we are at the very beginning of this, and to integrate other kind of where people producer of knowledge and other way of producing knowledge, and art is one of them.
I think something that really helped us in some of our research, and hopefully Simran will agree, especially kind of operating in quite a biomedical sphere within the Department of Psychiatry at Oxford University, has really been highlighting the level of impact that this data can have, and demonstrating the impact of sharing people's stories using art, particularly to policymakers and decision makers who aren't necessarily on the ground as much, alongside many of our healthcare professionals are, extremely overworked and underpaid and unsupported, as I'm sure we all know on the call. But I think highlighting the level of impact that we aim to have with research, and that we're not here just doing research for the sake of it. There is a purpose behind a lot of what we do, and really emphasising some of those research questions and the impact that we hope to have has really helped us bring some of that seriousness to a lot of what we're doing. I have just also remembered, I don't know if we've got any colleagues from Germany on the call, but there's also a PhD student in a group that I know of who were working from Scotland, who've used creative methods in Germany with displaced populations, using photo voice as well. I think they were doing that across 5 different languages, so they've got some really interesting data that they're looking to analyse, and I've done some consulting work with them recently. So I think there are, across some other spaces in Europe, people using photo voice and other creative methods, even if we're not working with them directly.
Well, this is going to be many other links, not only here. This is a way, I was really dreaming about this. How can we start a network to continue this furthermore? And before I make this other comment, I would like to say that one of the things that I touched me the most, but not only an effective way, but I thought it was a very achieved play. The one that Sibyl de Queiroz and Emmanuel Raymond showed. And I said to myself, this is something like a self-creative process. Am I wrong? Or is it a part of how do you say atelier, of a workshop? Emmanuel and Sibyl, is this a workshop product, or is this Sibyl's and Remy's spontaneous intention?
Well, the training program was delivered, which it's very a structured program that has been set up by the European Federations of Family Associations of People with Mental Illness, which is called Prospect. So it's very structured. And this is after Sibyl participated into this workshop, delivered PHP basis, that she decided to do it completely on her own, but then she came and went to see me, and we worked together on the script. So this is how we put it up, and which is I straight away realized that there was a very powerful impact by the way we have to express in an artistic way all the pain and all the difficulties, all our struggles as family. Also, there's a way out, and artistic expression is also there to convey a way, to convey a process that families are experienced too along the mental illness. So
yes, of course.
It's both. So it has been induced by the workshop we set up on a regular basis everywhere in France, Prospect workshop, and then it's spontaneous creative answer that we co-constructed together. And now we are going to put it on stage in Paris. So this is a great news for us.
A whole personal process. So yes, well, we're on a time, and we have some time to further comments. I must say I heard one word pronounced by Mani, and this might be a part of the discussion sometime. Art cannot be object of science, you said. This could be something to be debated. I don't know if everyone agrees with this. I don't know if you realize you said this, but it might be something you defend. That art cannot be an object of science, you said. And this is what you were defending on by saying, since it cannot be an object of science, it makes a part of liberty for everyone. This is why I understood. Am I right? Yes.
Me? Yes. Well, for example, what I wanted to say, I want to be more precise on that. It's not the same thing, technique, than science. To produce art, you need technique. And technique needs, in a way, some aspect of science. For example, I play the saxophone. To make somebody else play the saxophone, I show them the instrument, how to use the instrument, but I cannot show them to improvise. It's like language. I cannot tell them what to say. They say by itself. And that is something in art that they have to discover. Okay? I mean, the pleasure of art, the experience of art is not a scientific aspect. I think the technique is, because we have to master the instrument. or the painting or whatever art we are dealing with. But the experience is something much more primitive than knowledge. That's all.
Alberto, ton micro est coupé.
Excuse me. Julia, I think you want to answer or to continue the idea. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I think there's a level in which we are always discussing what is science in mental health field, but we must know that protocols are necessary. We must know that we can study even in psychoanalysis. I'm from that field. Seriously, without taking the notion of object of science so seriously or equivalent as other fields. So I think the phrase is relative, I understood it like that. I think art is a subject of study, if you if you prefer. I am an artist as well, so I see the point of money, but and there's a part that cannot be transmitted. But I think art is a way of studying human processes, and also a way of treating them.
Yeah, very nice, very very clever. Also, art is a subject of study. I used to say that there is objectives when we're working, and that's subjectives when we're working. So we must look for both of them. I do believe there's somebody else who raised the hand. Sibyl, is that you?
Yes.
Or was it the first time?
Activity.
Sibyl?
Yeah, thank you. Sibyl and
please.
Yes, thank you very much for the
Sibyl.
participation. I would like to express Sibyl and I concern about silence, because there was some words that has been said about silence, and to us as family caregivers, silence is a huge issue, because we are very often have to remain silent because of the stigma which is attached to the mental disease, because of this medical confidentiality which is attached to the diagnostic of a loved one. We don't want to be indiscreet.
Oh.
And I think art can be a very useful mediation for family caregivers to be able to express themselves and break this silence and break the taboo. So there's a social taboo linked to mental disease that affect families as well. The difficulty is when breaking the silence, breaking the taboo, is not to stigmatize the disease even more. And this is something which is very hard to do, because when we start speaking up about how our loved one is and how he lives, it can be very much stigmatized by everybody. So we remain silent. This is why family organizations are so useful, because this is a place where you don't have to remain silent. You can speak openly about the situation that affects your family life. And I think art can be the way out to go into public without stigmatizing the families and the people living with mental illness. And I think of movies that are being produced at the moment in France, like Life of My Mother, if you have seen it, which is a very beautiful film. I think that's something that can be done for families and to fight against stigma through art, which is good mediation. This is what we are trying to do, but it's a difficult way, because you can very easily become dramatic, and it's fun because it's so dramatic, and it's terror and pain, but what does it bring you at the end? So we have to be very careful as families, not only to express our pain and our distress and the drama we are experiencing, but also the way out and the beautiful relationship we still can have within this situation, which is indeed very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Roisin, please go ahead.
I don't know if Manny had his hand up in front of me. I don't know how they switched. I don't know if you wanted to come in first.
Yeah.
Please be my guest.
Oh, okay, I was just going to add that I think something that we've sometimes found helpful in some spaces is thinking about some of the different theoretical frameworks that we operate in when we're implementing kind of art in research, and working with a lot of marginalized groups, ethnic minority groups and carers. One of the concepts that we've often spoken about is epistemic injustice. And I don't know if that's a framework that others on the call are familiar with. I can see a few nodding heads, so that's good. I can pop a paper in the chat that we've written on this as well. But we've really talked a lot about using participatory action research, including creative and arts methods, as a solution to different forms of epistemic injustice and different power dynamics and imbalances. In some of our research, we had instances where we had psychiatrists working with patients whose care they'd been involved in. And we also had carers who'd had loved ones detained under the Mental Health Act. So some of the things that you were talking about there, Sibyl, really struck a chord with me. And I think that framework around epistemic injustice and allowing different voices to come through would really sit nicely with some of the things that you're talking about.
Great. Thank you very much, Roisin. Is there anyone else who wants to comment what we were saying or touch another subject? Or Manny, please. Yes, I forgot you were raised your hand before.
Sorry, very briefly, just 2 points that are very important. For example, I have been reading about the relation, and that is part of what we need science to do research, even about the art as a tool. For example, I've heard that music can be an anesthetic to people who have a chronic neurological pain. For example, anyone who are interested on that, I could share the articles about that. No, another thing that we have to relate to science in the part of mathematics is, for example, in harmony. Harmony is a way of making mathematics with sound. All what is the physical components of music, like harmonicos, like the resonance, how music is produced and organized, is also related to math, to mathematical order. But what I was only speaking a little bit here is that harmony itself is geometry, no? But I speak a little bit about what is the golden number related to static in Europe, at the same time in the pre-Hispanic sculpture. So there is a lot still to do research and not create a kind of religion in any way about art, because science is also a way of understanding the world that could produce a lot of the relation with art. The last thing I want to say about silence is that Miles Davis, if you are interested on thinking about silence, the book of Miles Davis, that is a musician, is very good, because he said that the most important part of music is silence. And what do all the music do is put a cadre, like a context on silence.
Frame.
A frame. That's right. That's all. Thank you.
Right. Well, hey, you're. This is a very interesting debate. I have to be honest and try to finish it more or less at the time we said. But I would like to say something else. Of course, I'm saying hello to everybody because I didn't mention everyone, but I've seen you. This is great. We're 22 people out of 24 that are going to be speaking that day. So it's very, very interesting. Our friends Itsuo Asai and Yushiro Abe are from Japan, are organized, were part of the huge effort to organize a Congress. And I'm not going to talk more about this. They're going to present their work on a month, and on May the 16th, and then they're going to talk us a little bit more about the Congress in Tokyo on September 2025. But I want to tell you that they're interested in having an idea of how many people would be interested of continuing this work in Tokyo together, or from here to Tokyo together. I'm not asking you to respond right now, but I would like you to think about this. The idea of having an appointment in Paris on September 2024 might be a part of a way to continue working to 2025, and in order to meet us together in Tokyo. I know this is one of my defaults, but I must afford Paris before. But Itsuo and Yushiro wanted to have an idea of if there's interested about it. I'm not asking you to raise your hand unless you're seriously already sure about going. But please be there on the 16th of May and June 6th and 20th, because on June the 20th, Itsuo and Yoshiro are going to talk about this Congress organized by the World Association of Cultural Psychiatry, which is the best place to continue to talk about this. So be thinking about this, preparing things. I am there to answer your questions. Maybe Itsuo and Yoshiro can send me some flyers, and I will put the information on in order to have a precise idea from here to June of how many people might be interested of continuing this work on Tokyo. But for the moment, let's say we're in Paris. We're going to still being in Paris for the moment until September 2024. Thank you very much for all of you. I am, as always, going to send you back the link in order to be able to regard your exposures and the others ones. And please, the idea is to have you have the liberty of rewriting your things from what you've heard of the others. This is also the big pressure of this. It doesn't means to steal. It means to use Else's tools to co-elaborate things. This is what I think is a collaboration. It's a co-elaborate things. Thank you very much, everyone. And I will see you, and I'm going to announce the ones who are going to be there. We'll see you May the 16th. Thank you very much, you all. Thank you. Thank you for the speakers.
Bye-bye.
Very interesting. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Alberto.